Okay. So we have two great speakers today. I'm going to do introductions. We are, as you heard, recording this session, so feel free to share this with your staff, board members, anybody in your network. We also posted on our YouTube page. So anyway, we'll get started. Again, thank you so much. We'll take questions throughout or at the end, whichever. Is there a preference?
At the end, this is Krescene, I'm sorry. At the end is good. Oftentimes we find that people's question gets answered in just a little bit after they ask it.
Okay, perfect. Well, with that, I'm going to introduce our wonderful speakers that we have here today. So Krescene Beck provides organization. She's with the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. She's been our partner in this series. Welcome, Krescene. She provides organizational advocacy support for the Alliance as a licensed nursing home administrator and former executive vice president of a large disability service agency. Krescene has spent the past 16 years working on statewide grants focused on self-advocacy and on building collaborations to better respond to people with disabilities who experience violence. Krescene specializes in creating opportunities for self-advocates to find and use their voices to live their best lives. She also services as a co-director with Blue Tower Solutions Incorporated. And I would also like to introduce Teresa Parks. Thank you, Teresa, for joining us. She's the Deputy Director of the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission, as well as the Director of the Commission's Human Rights Authority. She's a National Certified Guardian through the Center for Guardianship Certification, as well as a graduate of Illinois' Partners in Policymaking Program and the Institute of Special Education Advocacy. Teresa is an appointed member of the Illinois Council on Developmental Disabilities, and she's the parent of 2 adult children, including a son with disabilities. And I would be remiss if I didn't say Adam Weiser was supposed to be here today. Unfortunately, he's under the weather, but we wish him well. And with that, I just turn it over to our speakers. So thanks so much.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Krescene. I'm going to go ahead and prepare my screen to share. I'm going to move some things out of the way so that we have better visual. All right, I'm going to put it in slideshow mode. And what you should be seeing right now is a slide that covers the entire screen, if that's what mode you're in, that says, let's learn about supported decision-making in Illinois. Is anyone able to say, yes, this is what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Oh, yay, great. Thank you so much. So as Jody said, today we are going to learn about supported decision-making in Illinois. And we thank ACMHAI and Jody for inviting us in so that we can share about supported decision-making. This presentation is brought to you by IGAC, the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission, and the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. You heard my bio and Teresa's bio, but I want to share a little bit about Adam Weiser. Adam wasn't able to be here today. He's a bit under the weather, but getting better. Adam is the project director of the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. He oversees the project and the direction in which we are going and all the goals and programs underneath our project. Adam is a graduate of the PACE program at National Louis University in Chicago. He lives in Evanston and has an amazing life there. Adam is also a graduate of the Alliance's Ambassador Leadership Program. Although Adam isn't with us today, you will be hearing from 2 self-advocates through the power of video as they share about supported decision-making. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa to share a little bit about the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission.
Thank you very much, Krescene. It's great to be here today. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to share just a very brief overview of our agency, the Commission, just for resource information, should you need some assistance from our agency. Our agency is a state commission. And we do initiate legislation concerning people with disabilities, just as we initiated the proposal unsupported decision making that turned into actual law, which is always good. We are a statewide agency. We have offices across the state as designated by the stars on this map. We have administrative offices in Chicago and Springfield.
I think we lost you there for a
Oh, all right. Teresa, this is Krescene. I'm
Oh,
not, oh, there you go. Are you there?
it says my internet is unstable. I'm going to turn off my video and see if that
Okay.
helps.
All right.
So
Thanks. So Teresa, we heard you talk about Guardianship and Advocacy Commission being a state agency, and
okay.
then we lost you.
Okay, my apologies there. We are a statewide agency, and we do initiate legislation frequently to help people with disabilities. We have offices across the state as identified by the stars on this map, and we also have offices, administrative offices, one in Chicago and one in Springfield. And all of our programs support people with disabilities in different ways. And here are our programs. Many people know us through our Office of State Guardian. We are the state guardian in Illinois, and we're considered the guardian of last resort for adults, only adults with disabilities. And that means basically that we don't get appointed guardian unless the court somewhere in the state determines someone needs a guardian and there's really no one else to serve as guardian, either an appropriate candidate or an available candidate to serve as guardian. We are guardian for about 5,000 individuals across the state of Illinois. We also, through our website, have educational information about adult guardianship, and we put forth a guardian training module for newly appointed guardians. That's now a requirement in Illinois that when someone is appointed guardian of an adult, they must take training within a year of appointment. And we do sponsor a training module that can be used for that purpose, and it's available free of charge. Our legal advocacy service provides legal advice and representation for both children and adults with disabilities. Most often, our attorneys in that program are representing individuals who are facing some type of involuntary mental health proceedings, such as involuntary commitment to a mental health facility or court-ordered treatment, often psychotropic medication treatment. So our attorneys are much like public defenders representing those individuals as they go through those proceedings to help ensure due process protections in those settings. We also, in that program, our attorneys assist individuals with advanced directives, setting up advanced directives like powers of attorney. They also assist individuals with setting up something that we have some very unique here in Illinois called the Mental Health Treatment Declaration, which is like a power of attorney, but it's specific to mental health services. Our Human Rights Authority investigates allegations of rights violations committed against people with disabilities by disability service providers. We go into all kinds of settings from state-operated facilities, group homes, vocational programs, community mental health or developmental disability centers. We go into nursing homes, special ed programs, and yes, sometimes we go into jails because unfortunately, sometimes people with disabilities interface with the criminal justice system. And Through our investigations, we determine whether or not that disability rights issue is a rights violation. And if it is, we issue recommendations for improvement to better protect the individuals that that service provider serves. I also want to mention that the authority is comprised of 9 regional boards of directors. There's a staff person that assists each board, but the board members serve voluntarily. And we're often looking for individuals who might be interested in serving on a regional board. If anyone out there would be interested, we'd love to hear from you. You can email me directly, or you can visit our website and look up more information about the Human Rights Authority role. Last but not least, we have a special education advocacy initiative, which is really a collaboration between our legal advocacy service and our Human Rights Authority. We have individuals, disability rights managers who assist Illinois families with questions about special ed. We also do advocacy. We assist with complaints. We can attend remotely IEP meetings to assist those families. And we have one attorney and one paralegal who can assist with some mediation and due process cases. We also do training in that program. Under our legislation that created our agency is built in the ability to recommend legislation. And so we have really taken public policy work as far as we can in some cases, but many of our legislative work is based on our actual casework through our programs. The supported decision-making proposal really came about as a result of our experience in the guardianship world, where we would find sometimes we would get appointed through our state guardian on someone who may not have needed a full-fledged guardian, that there were some questions about the need for guardianship. We also were hearing from families who had children with disabilities who were reaching adulthood, and they felt pressure to pursue guardianship just because their child had a disability, and the family members would often come to us and say, you know, I'm not sure my child needs a full-fledged guardian. They need a little help with decision making, but maybe not a guardianship. But there really was no other option. So we started doing research on what other states had in place regarding supported decision making, and created our proposal after doing our own research on what we thought would be the best components of supported decision making statute in our state. And that's how we came up with our proposal. So just a little background history. I think, Krescene, you're up next.
I am. Now, many of us have heard of guardianship, and we're pretty familiar with what that means. Maybe not all of us have heard about supported decision making. So we are going to hear from an amazing self-advocate named Ricky Broussard. He is with Disability Rights Texas, and Disability Rights Texas is that state's protection and advocacy organization. In Illinois, our protection and advocacy organization is called Equip for Equality. Well, Ricky is going to share with us what is supported decision making and how it differs from guardianship.
What is supported decision making? A message from Disability Rights Texas.
Hello, my name is Ricky Broussard, and I'm at Disability Rights Texas. I'm here to talk to you today about supported decision making.
Supported decision making is a way for people with disabilities to keep our rights and make our own choices with help from others, instead of having a guardian who makes decisions for us. Guardianship.
People say guardians make it easier, but once you have a guardian, that guardian has control of it. A guardian is decided by a judge, and you do not have control over any important decisions that need to be made. It shouldn't be that way, because it's about the individual's life. It's not about their life.
Under guardianship, you can lose the right to choose where you live, how you spend your money, who you spend your time with, and other important decisions. Supported decision making.
Supported decision making. It's all about the individual. It helps us make the right decision for ourselves in our life. If you need help making decisions, choose someone that you trust. It doesn't have to be a family member. It could be somebody at school you trust or somebody at work you trust. After you choose somebody to support you, you tell them what you need support on and how they can help you. Some of the things that your supporter can help you do is going to the grocery store or make medical decisions or with where you live, or they could help over your finances. In my support team, I let everybody know, okay, this is what I need decisions on, and this is what I need you to help me with. After I hear the pros and cons of the decision, that's when I make the final decision on whatever choice I make. We all need help to make decisions. We have to make decisions every day. Your rights should not be taken away just because you need help.
Yes. So again, we thank Ricky Broussard in his sharing of supported decision making and how it differs from guardianship. So let's check out about supported decision making a little bit further.
According to the Supported Decision Making Act, the overall purpose of supported decision making is to recognize a less restrictive alternative for adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities who need assistance with decisions regarding daily living. So a couple of keywords I want to point out. This only applies to adults age 18 and older, and currently it only applies to adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities. However, we are in the process of introducing a new proposal in the spring 2025 legislative session, where we would expand its application to all adults, including adults with mental health needs, as well as seniors. And so we will be looking for stakeholders who might want to support this expansion to other populations. So if there's any interest out there in learning more about our proposal, we would certainly like to hear from you. But in general, supported decision making provides that alternative to the more restrictive guardianship option for adults with intellectual or developmental disabilities who need some assistance with decision making, like we all do from time to time. The difference is this act provides some structure for people with disabilities as well as some protections. The act has multiple components. It has some guiding principles. It incorporates a presumption of capacity statement. It describes what a supporter can and cannot do. Contained within the legislative language is an actual supported decision-making agreement that, according to the act, must be substantially followed. It addresses how supporters can access information through releases of information. It includes methods to end a supported decision-making arrangement and an agreement. And it also incorporates resources for reporting abuse, neglect, and exploitation should there be concerns about the supporter arrangements.
Let's get into the general description. So as Teresa mentioned, the supported decision-making agreement is for an adult age 18 or over who has an intellectual or developmental disability. And that adult is called the principal. The principal identifies a trusted person in their life, whether it's a relative or a friend. That person is called a supporter. And the supporter assists the principal in certain areas of life, whether it's medical, financial, living arrangements, employment. There's some other areas, and we'll show that to you on the agreement. The supporter arrangements are put into a written document called the supported decision-making agreement. And that agreement has to be signed by both the principal and the supporter in front of 2 witnesses. Then the supporter helps the principal with decisions in those identified areas of support, and only in those identified areas of support. The principal always makes the final decision, and the principal can act independent of the agreement if they want to. They don't have to ask the supporter for any support if they don't want to. Some of the guiding principles include that all adults should be able to live in a manner of one's own choosing. And I know that's huge now with the home and community-based waiver program, that people are living in places that they choose. All adults should be able to participate in decisions regarding their own lives. Adults who need assistance should receive the most effective and least intrusive assistance that we can possibly provide. And when providing assistance to someone, that person's, their values, their beliefs, their cultural traditions, all those should be respected. The presumption of capacity statement that is included in the Act, I think, is so amazing because it puts it right out there. It emphasizes that all adults are presumed to have capacity to make their own decisions unless otherwise determined by court. And that capacity is not simply voided because of a person's disability or the manner in which a person communicates. And I hope you agree that this is an amazing statement, because for far too long, we have looked at someone and we have seen you have a disability and maybe you can't communicate in a way that's easy for us to understand. And so we think that you don't have capacity. But this Act puts it right out there that everyone has capacity. So what are the supporter duties? They are to assist with understanding information about a decision. Maybe it's putting it into easier to understand language, or maybe some role playing or acting things out. Maybe it's doing a list of pros and cons. They can help access information that's needed to make a decision, or access information once the decision's made. Here's what happens. They can assist with appointments and help track services. They can determine the principal's decisions, assist with communicating the decisions, and helping advocate for the principal's wishes and decisions. Nowhere in here does it say they make the decisions for the principal. The supporter can also have access to information in order to help the principal, but they can only access information with the principal's consent and as approved under the agreement. The supporter must keep any information that they access confidential, and the principal, just like they can always make a decision without the supporter, they can always access information without help from the supporter. Releases of information, though, may be needed for a supporter to access information, and that's not unusual with the roles that we have in supporting people. So, Teresa, would you share a little bit more about releases of information?
Yes, even though there might be a supported decision-making agreement in place, it's very likely that most providers, based on confidentiality mandates, will want a release of information to allow a supporter to access information related to a decision a principal is going to make. That release of information should be very specific to the types of information that a supporter can access, whether it be medical, financial, school records, or or other records. And it should be related, the information request should be related to an area of support that the supporter is giving to the principal. That release of information must be signed by the principal and witnessed by another adult who observes the principal signing it. Although it's not required, it's recommended that maybe someone other than the supporter serve as the witness to a release of information. Our agency has created 2 sample releases that are available on our agency website under supported decision making. We've created one for school records because they have some very specific requirements, and then we have a release for everything else. These forms, as I said, are available for downloading, printing, and using.
So we heard what supporters can do, but there are very specific things that supporters cannot do. And the biggest thing is exerting undue influence or forcing a principal to make a certain decision or even making a decision for the principal. They also cannot access information about the principal unless authorized to by the principal or the agreement. They cannot access information unrelated to an identified area of support. So perhaps the supported decision making is about employment, and the supporter tries to access information related to medical. Can't do that. That is not an area that the principal indicated that they wanted or needed their support in. Supporters cannot be paid for being a supporter, and they cannot work for the principal unless they are family. We'll share a little bit more about that. Supporters cannot be a current teacher that's involved in the principal's education. People can enter into a supported decision-making agreement at age 18, and so they may still be in school receiving educational services. So if they are, a current teacher cannot be a supporter. Supporters also cannot be a person who is an employee or an employer of the principal unless they are an immediate family member, nor can they be paid to provide support services unless they are an immediate family member. And some people have home and community-based services and things that are happening in the home. So you can see where a family member, an immediate family member, might be paid to provide some support services, and they can be a supporter. The supporter cannot be a person who works for an agency that is financially responsible for the care of the principal, and a person who is listed on the healthcare registry. So a person who has had a finding of abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation. Supporters cannot be a person who has a court order prohibiting contact with the principal, and a supporter cannot be a person who's been convicted of some certain crimes, including sex offense, aggravated assault, fraud, theft, forgery, and extortion. So the relationship between a principal and a supporter is one that is based on dignity and respect and equality. And when a principal approaches a supporter and says, hey, I'm interested in you serving as my supporter in the supported decision-making agreement, here are some questions that a supporter might ask a principal. Again, it's about understanding and the shared responsibility. So some questions that may be asked can include, so principal, what are your strengths? Help me understand what you're really good at and what you need help in. What help that I can provide as a supporter would benefit you the most? Is it that I'm good at researching things on the computer? Is it that I'm good with budgeting, or I'm good at scheduling things, or as a former teacher, I understand the IEP process? What role do you want me to play in decisions? Understanding that I cannot and will not make the decision for you. But do you want me to help you research information? Do you want me to help you list pros and cons? Do you want me to help you communicate your decisions? What things do you want me to do on your behalf? And really important, what things do you not want me to do? Where's the line? So I know if I'm getting close to your line and about to step over it. So again, having these conversations is so important, because this is about supporting someone in a real dignified and respectful way.
And just to delve a little bit further in that supporter principal relationship, the supporter has some responsibilities as well. They should always make sure that the principal understands what they're doing on their behalf, what's currently happened, what they have done. They should review any information that they obtain regarding a decision directly with the principal. And both the supporter and the principal should really inform any involved service providers about the supported decision-making arrangement, maybe share a copy of the agreement, explain the areas of support that the supporter is involved with, but always emphasizing that those final decisions always rest in the hands of the principal. And as much as possible, the principal should be present when information is gathered by the supporter, and also when decisions are communicated. We have here a sample supported decision-making agreement. We took the language out of the statute and created a standalone form. This form, just like the releases, are available on our agency website for downloading, printing, and using. And I'm just going to go over some of the various components of the agreement. Agencies who receive a copy of this under the Act are required to follow the agreement unless the principal tells them otherwise. The first part of the agreement, this is page 1, it starts out with some definitions as well as some overarching duties that the supporter is to act in good faith, act within the authority of the agreement, act loyally and without self-interest, and avoid conflicts of interest. Page 1 also requires the supporter to list their contact information. The second page of the agreement, maybe one more slide. Yeah. The second page of the agreement is kind of the meat of the agreement. These are the various areas of support. Maybe the principal needs help with just basic needs, finding food, clothing, shelter. Maybe the principal needs help with medical decisions or mental health services decisions. Maybe they need help with managing their finances or applying for public benefits or work-related or school-related decisions. There's also a space for other kinds of decisions as well. Now, the principal would initial those areas that they want the supporter's assistance with. And for anything else, we recommend that they mark NA for not applicable. So it's very clear that these are the areas of support that the principal wants help with. Now, the principal might initial one area, they might initial a couple areas, they might initial all of the areas as needing assistance. That is completely fine. In the middle part of page 2, we've re-emphasized that a supporter is not allowed to make decisions for the principal. And here are the duties. These are the things the supporter can do. They can help gather information about a decision. They can go over options related to a decision, and they can help communicate a decision if needed. The bottom part of page 2 talks about the kinds of information a supporter may be allowed to access, but again, a more specific release of information is probably recommended here. The last page of the agreement is the signature page. This is where both the supporter and the principals sign. They do it in front of 2 other adult witnesses. And on the last page, we've also included and reminded that there are resources for reporting abuse, neglect, and exploitation, should there be concerns about the supporter-principal relationship. We believe that the Act has incorporated several safeguards to help protect the principal's choices, their decisions, and hopefully to protect against potential abuse. For example, the legislation emphasizes, as does the agreement you just saw, that the principal makes all the final decisions. The agreement itself documents what a supporter can and cannot do. The legislation, as well as the agreement you just saw, clearly explains what a supporter can do on a principal's behalf. And that includes gathering information, weighing options, and helping to communicate the principal's decision if needed. Additionally, some other safeguards include the fact that not everyone can be a supporter. There are disqualifications, and we've incorporated those abuse reporting mechanisms. Finally, another protection is the fact that the principal can end the agreement at any time.
Well, what an amazing display of power that people can have. I can end this supported decision-making agreement at any time for whatever reason I want. And there's a couple ways that a principal can do that. They can simply tear up the agreement. Now, if they're tearing it up in front of you and you're providing supports, you might want to enter some information in a case note that on this day, this person tore up their supported decision-making agreement. They can also ask someone to tear up the agreement in front of them. Maybe they say, hey, can you get that agreement over there and tear it up in front of me because I am done. And you say, well, all righty then. The principal can sign and date a statement that they are ending the agreement, and they can say that they want to end the agreement in front of 2 people who would serve as witnesses. Again, if you are someone who is supporting the principal and you are witness to them ending the agreement, you might want to include some of that information in a case note. The supported decision-making agreement can also end if there is a finding of abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation by the supporter, or if there is there is a restraining order against the supporter by the principal. The supporter also has the option to end the agreement as well. Although there is nothing written in the Act that says how this has to happen, what we recommend supporters do is give notice to the principal that they are ending the agreement. And we recommend a 2-week notice. And this gives time for a couple of different things. Perhaps the principal starts to think or talks to folks, maybe I don't need a supported decision-making agreement in this area anymore. I think I'm okay to do it on my own. I've got some trusted people around me. You heard Ricky Broussard talk about that. I've got some people that I can just ask for their advice, like we all do. The other thing is, if the principal thinks that maybe I think I do still need a supporter in this area, they can start to ask people about being a supporter, and they can enter into those conversations that we talked about before.
Our agency has a host of information available on our agency website about supported decision-making. We have a brochure, and I believe it's also available in Spanish. We've created training for people with disabilities to learn more about this option of decision-making assistance, and that training was developed with the assistance of the Self-Advocacy Alliance to ensure it's accessible and uses appropriate language. We have also created training for supporters. That was a requirement of the Act. It does issue a certificate of completion at the end. We have fact sheets about supported decision-making. We have those documents that model supported decision-making agreement, as well as releases of information forms. And we have some frequently asked questions. I've included here a link to our webpage on supported decision-making, and there's also a National Center for Supported Decision-Making that also has a lot of great information. And I think that that's kind of the information. Yes, we do have a brochure in Spanish. That's our website.
So now we are going to see supported decision-making in action. You are going to meet an amazing self-advocate named Will McMillan. Will lives in Tennessee, and he is going to share how supported decision-making works in his life.
Supported decision making is that you are making decisions, but you also are actually getting help from other people.
One of the most important things about being human is feeling that you have control over your life and that you understand and feel good about what decisions you're making.
Decisions I would make on my own would be deciding what I want to eat, and also check my mail when I need to, check in with friends, my parents, and my siblings.
We all use supported decision making. Every time you ask for advice from a friend, family member, you may ask advice from a professional when you're making a medical decision.
Some decisions I need help with. Who do I ask that help me make decisions on my own? Would be my peers, my parents, and friends in the community. I look for people that I trust and care about me. Some decisions I like to get help with would be definitely medical decisions. Sometimes you may not know what they are, and that there's always good people that can help. My mom helps me make decisions on talking to my doctor. She helps explain what's going on. Making decisions to live on my own is important. I prepare for myself for work. I have my clothes that I can lay out on my bed, and then I make that decision on my own to do that. I might make mistakes, but I learn to pick myself up and keep going. My mistake would be drinking too much caffeine. I had to learn to cut back. I'm learning how to cook. So I get to find my own recipes. I find my own meals, or I actually have meals that are left over from dinners or lunch. It feels great that I can live on my own and have my freedom.
Whether we have a disability or not, very well-intentioned supporters can sometimes make decisions about our life or try to really influence decisions about our life.
It's your life. When I make a tough decision, it would be something that might be hard and a challenge, but I'm up to the challenge. But like I said, you have a group behind you. The reason why you have that support group is because they know what you want and they'll like to help support you. If you need help making decisions, go to your full support team and they will have your back.
All right, we thank Will for sharing with us how supported decision-making works in his life. And just by living and making decisions, we all experience something called the dignity of risk. And unfortunately, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have not always had the opportunity to take risks because we are afraid that they are going to get hurt. We remember when they made a decision 20 years ago and it didn't work out well then. But dignity of risk is so important. It's about respecting a person's autonomy and self-determination to make choices for themselves, big choices, little choices, all kinds of choices. It's giving people place and space to take risks that go along with ordinary life, which are necessary for personal growth and development. And it's providing support based on a person's interests, abilities, and needs. And I like to say that mistakes equal experience. And I don't know about you, but I've made a lot of mistakes and I have gained a lot of experience. And What I have seen in my years of supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities is sometimes well-intentioned folks expect the people that they support to live to a higher standard than they are willing to have for themselves. And that's not right. Everyone gets to experience the dignity of risk. And so I'd like to share with you 10 tips for supported decision making. And not only are these 10 tips for supported decision making, but anytime we are supporting someone in making decisions, whether they have an agreement or guardianship or they're just doing their own thing, I think these are tips that we can keep in our back pockets that can serve us and the people we support well. So give people time to think about what a question means to them and say things in their own words using language that's easy for them to understand. Give people the chance to ask about something that they don't understand before you explain it to them. Sometimes people have different processing speeds and they need to sit with the information for a while. Make sure all facilitators know their roles and give each other time to do their parts, whether it's a facilitator or a support staff or a friend. Give each other time to do their parts. Be prepared to do role play sometimes to help explain things on the agreement form or about decisions or options or choices. Keep track of time. Don't spend too much time on one thing. Focus support on deciding things, not for doing things. We want to support people to live their best lives, not do things for them so they can live their best lives. Spend more time talking about who could be good supporters and what a good supporter looks like. Make sure that people talk about the support they want in the future, not just the support that they are getting now. Asking people to think out 1 year, 2 years down the line. Talk about how the person will use the agreement in their lives and try to educate them about other ways they could use it as well. And sometimes it's about sharing examples from our own lives about the hard decisions that we've had to make and the support that we have gotten. And these 10 tips come from a document called Supported Decision Making, a self-advocate's 10 commandments for community members. And this was done by an amazing self-advocate named Chester Finn, who was a social connectedness fellow. Now we're going to share another example of supported decision making in action. You heard Ricky talk about it. You heard Will talk about it. And now here's another example. So Tony wants a supporter to help him with medical decisions and paying bills. Tony has an older sister named Mary, and Tony really trusts Mary and talks with her about being a supporter. They have that conversation. Mary hasn't been convicted of any crimes that would prevent her from serving as a supporter, and she agrees to be Tony's supporter. So they've gone to the Guardianship and Advocacy Commission's website and they've downloaded and printed out that supported decision-making agreement. Tony fills it out and he initials medical and financial assistance for his areas of support. Tony and Mary sign the agreement and their mom and dad sign the agreement as witnesses. So life is going along. Tony has a doctor's appointment and the doctor wants Tony to change medication. Tony tells the doctor that he wants to talk to his supporter first before he makes that decision. Tony signs a release of information so that Mary can look at his medical records to help him get information about medications and potential changes. Mary helps Tony learn about the new medication She also helps him write a list of questions to ask the doctor. How many of us do that? We go into our doctor with a list of questions. I always think of the questions as I'm leaving the office and driving away. But Tony will decide if he wants to take the new medication. Few years go by and Tony learns how to take care of his medications and pay his bills without Mary's help. He decides he wants to end the agreement. He thanks his sister for helping him learn about his medical and financial needs, and he tears up the agreement. This doesn't mean that Tony still can't ask her for help if and when he believes he needs it. Could ask other people for help too, but in terms of that particular agreement, there is none anymore. And so some things to remember about supported decision-making. The goal is to recognize that there is a less restrictive alternative for adults age 18 and older who have intellectual or developmental disabilities who need assistance with decisions regarding daily living. The second is that the Supported Decision-Making Act emphasizes that all adults are presumed to have the capacity to make their own decisions unless otherwise determined by court. And capacity is not voided simply because of a person's disability or disabilities and the manner in which a person communicates. Now we have some frequently asked questions that we've gathered in over the time that we have been providing information about supported decision-making.
Yes, let me just go over a few of these. One question that has come up, do you have to use that form, that exact form that is found in the legislation? And no, that's not a requirement, but any form that is used should substantially follow the form that's in the legislation. And that's very similar language as you see in Powers of Attorney Act. Many other states had used a sample form in their statutes, and we decided to do that as well, since this was a new concept in Illinois. Another question that has come up, does the form have to be notarized? We actually had that in the original provision of the act, but we decided to, after hearing from self-advocates that it's hard sometimes for them to access a notary, we decided to remove it and substitute it with the 2 witness signatures. So it does not have to be notarized. The supporter cannot, of course, be one of the witnesses. I have heard of families, though, having the form notarized anyway. They feel like it maybe lends a little bit more legitimacy to the document, but it's certainly not required. Another question is whether or not a physician statement is required to initiate this kind of arrangement. No, that is not a requirement to enter into a supported decision-making arrangement. It's not that formal of a process. It's very much like a power of attorney where it's between 2 people, the principal and the supporter. It doesn't go before a court. It doesn't require a physician statement. Now, if you're looking at guardianship, a physician statement is required to be presented in court about the need for a guardian. Another question is whether or not you can have more than one agreement and more than one supporter. There's nothing in the act that would prohibit an individual from having more than one supporter and more than one agreement. Maybe a principal has a relative who's an accountant and would be really good at helping them with financial decisions, and maybe another family member who is a medical professional, and it might be a good resource as a supporter for medical decisions. Whatever the case, there probably should be 2 distinct and separate supported decision-making agreements that clearly outline separate duties of each supporter. So in an effort to avoid any kind of conflicts of interest or conflicts at all. Another question is whether or not you can have a backup supporter. And there's, again, nothing in the act that would prohibit a principal from adding an addendum to the agreement that would identify a backup supporter should the supporter not be available or not be able to function in their capacity as a supporter. And I just wanted to include our contact information. This is a toll-free number for our agency, the Guardianship and Advocacy Commission. And then we also have a website you're welcome to check out, as well as my email. Feel free to contact me afterwards with any questions or concerns.
And as Teresa mentioned earlier, the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance, or the Alliance, provided universal design support for not only this presentation, but for other items related to supported decision-making that you may access on their website. So the Alliance, we also have a website and an email address if you want to connect with us. You can also find us on Facebook and on YouTube. At this point, I am going to stop sharing my screen so that we can all see each other, or you can just see me and perhaps you see Jody. If anybody has any questions or comments or contributions that they would like to share, now would be the time.
I do see a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say I saw Amy's chat question in the chat box.
Yeah, and how does this fit into the puns list? Certainly.
I'm sorry, I can like provide content as to why I'm asking that quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
So with the puns list is not very forgiving of decisions. So because like my oldest son, well, actually both my sons are on the puns list and they do not need guardianship, but we don't know what they would need when, you know, like they're still minors. We don't know what they will need in late adulthood, but with the puns list, if they say, no, I don't need certain things now, then that takes them off the puns list forever. Mm-hmm. So then I was told, and that was through like the people that do the puns list, and then also even from one of the state workers that we had in ACMHAI a few months ago. So like you have to, like now I have to tell them like they may be in need of this like housing when they're adults. They may need I can't say it right, in need of certain things like once I'm gone. So I can say that yes now, but then if my oldest, when he becomes an adult and he takes over his kind of puns list questionnaire, if he says, oh no, like that's silly, I will never need that, because I mean, he's a teenager. So let's be real. But so I was told like, well, maybe you should look into supported decision-making. However, like this doesn't, so maybe it's just a side note for like future things, like the puns list is not like, I believe in decision-making and make your own mistakes, but it seems like the puns list at this current moment is not very forgiving of that.
I appreciate that comment. And, you know, what I could see as supporter, once the child reaches adulthood, if they haven't signed up for the puns list, I could see the supporter assisting with that and helping them get on the puns list, as well as checking the status of where an individual is at on the puns list, and also maybe going over some of those questionnaires. A supporter could be a resource to go over some of the questions that come up regarding the need for services and puns. Again, the principal would make all the final decisions. But one thing I wanted to mention, we are putting together another legislative proposal that we hope to bring forward in the spring session that would require schools to share our brochure on supported decision-making with transition age youth who have IEPs, much like they're supposed to be doing now with the puns brochure. We were looking to get that out there and let families know that there's options. It's not automatic guardianship, or it's not, you have an option if you feel like if the student feels like they need a little help with decisions. So just want to get that out there.
That's good to know. And maybe when you get a bill number or whatnot, you can let us know to.
That would be great.
Committee.
This is Krescene, and I will share our PowerPoint presentation slides with Jody to send out to everyone along with the recording. Teresa also talked about the Human Rights Authority and seeking volunteers with disabilities, volunteers without disabilities to serve on the various regions, Human Rights Authority boards. I will send that flyer about how to volunteer also to Jody. And Jody, if you would share it amongst your membership, we would appreciate that.
Happy to. Thank you. Yes. And we will be uploading this presentation up to our YouTube page as well and forwarding it on to our members. So do we have any other questions or comments or anything for the speakers today? Well, it's been great. I appreciate you guys, your time and information. So thank you so much. And I'll be sure to make sure that I will be sure to send all of the materials out to our members. So we have, quite a big list, and we'll make sure that they push it out as well. And again, if you have legislative initiatives and whatnot, feel free to reach out to me, and I will make sure our legislative co-chairs are aware, so they can put that on their radar. And Kim, did you have anything to add?
No, thank you both. I was going to ask, this is like totally a sidebar, so I don't know if you want to finish and then I'll ask Teresa.
Yes.
So a few months ago, I had you're with Guardianship and Advocacy, correct? So it has been a few months. I was like, was it last month? No, it's been a couple months ago. I had, I guess, your colleague do a presentation for me here in Champaign County. Laura, is it Laura Davis?
Yes.
I don't know if that might be a good presentation for ACMHAI. I'm trying to, of course.
Did she do it on our commission and its services, or the Human Rights Authority? Do you recall the topic?
I'm trying to look it up because I'm drawing a blank on what the title was. Yeah, and I was myself, and actually a lot of the people in attendance who have been in this field for quite a long time were like, oh, I had no idea. People were kind of surprised. So it was on the Human Rights Authority, and the title was really long. So it wasn't really long. What is the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission Human Rights Authority? And then she just talked about the investigative arm, and that was what was kind of a surprise to myself and others. Everybody knows about OIG, and then the senior
Department on Aging.
Yes, thank you. I am like, my mind is
Services.
just completely gone, and that is actually
okay.
kind of scary how bad that is right now. But I've been in this field since for 21 years, and I didn't know that was something that Guardianship and Advocacy and Human Rights Authority provided. And so I just wondered if maybe in a few months down the road, I chair the ACMHAI's IDD committee, if maybe we could get you on the schedule. I mean, she did that presentation pretty quickly. So if we could just maybe get you on the schedule to provide that, because ACMHAI covers the entire state. And, she mentioned that her region is very large, but that, she's just one of several in Illinois. So I thought it was, it can't just be Champaign County people that we did not know about that. So
that's one of our biggest struggles with that program, is getting the word out that it exists. And what I could do is maybe do a email introduction with you, Kim, and Jody, with Laura, and ask if she can't do it statewide, because she can share.
Is Laura the one that does that? For the state?
not necessarily. We have several staff who are willing to do
Okay.
presentations. Since you had such a good experience with her,
I can actually reach out to her. I just
Okay.
didn't know if there was, if that was something you did I can reach out to Laura and
if she's
connect her
willing
with
to do
Jody
it,
and-
yeah, if she's
yep.
willing to do it, that's great. If not, just reach back out to me. I'm happy to do it. But she can give you, like, she's right hands-on is handling actual cases, and they
Okay,
have quite
yeah.
a range of cases in Champaign County, so she can speak to some very specific examples of what they find in schools and state operative. They go into Shapiro. I know they've had cases there, and quite a range of she's a good person to represent the spectrum of cases.
Perfect. Yeah, then I'll reach out to Laura and Jody and we can try to get this down the road. I just was, when you were speaking, I was thinking about it and it kind of popped up in my brain of how many people in the room, and it was a small group, but almost every single one of us in the room was like, oh, I didn't know you did that, and probably 100 years of experience in the room, if not more, because we had all been in the field for quite some time. So
yeah, that's a frustrating thing. And I will tell you that sometimes when we don't get cases resolved in our Human Rights Authority, when a provider isn't cooperative, that's when we take those cases, if we start seeing a pattern, and we turn it into a legislative proposal. Because
well, perfect. Well, thank you. I will, Jody, I'll send an email here in a little bit and just kind of reach out to Laura and connect you, and then we can go from there depending on her schedule and what's upcoming.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for presenting. We really appreciate it. We've had 3 wonderful presentations. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.